Tedekoto Tefano o Aotearoa Unitarians. Tedekoto na manahiri no mai haramai kitene hui topa ate atua. Tedekoto tena tato kotoa. Well, Unitarians probably don't know it, but today we begin the walk to Jerusalem, the Holy Week, the demand that we face the broken path, the abuse of power. Today we walk toward the dayspring breaking through the Easter day of joy. So let us prepare the way. Let us join together this morning in worship to see what holiness resides within and about us. To welcome in the day, let us worship together. My opening words are by someone who was, for a brief time, a minister of our congregation, David Rankin. Palm Sunday is found whenever we are serving a noble and unpopular cause with selfless devotion, holding to the ideals of truth and justice. Whenever we are seeking to uplift the fallen, to comfort the broken-hearted, to strengthen and encourage the weak and hopeless. Whenever we are working bravely and persistently in the face of abuse and criticism to establish more equitable relations in the world. Whenever we are sacrificing our lives on behalf of what we believe to be the service of love for all humanity. That is Palm Sunday. Our opening song is actually in our hymnal, but we've never sung it since I've been there. It's hymn 260, Oshana, Shira, Oshana. It means save us, one who comes in the name of the Lord, which is from Psalm 118, verse 26, and is directly referenced in Mark 11:9 as Jesus rides into Jerusalem. And now if you have a candle or chalice, it's time to light it. Every endeavor begins with a first step and encounters darkness and difficulty along the way. We know the darkness of ignorance, of fear, and of tyranny. Yet we know the dawning of the light, the beginning of hope, and the renewal of life. Blessed be the eternal power which inspires us to kindle this light. Blessed be the source of light and life. My reading this morning is this. In a dream, a devout disciple of the Master was permitted to approach the temple in paradise, where all the great old sages who had studied the Talmud all their lives were now spending eternity. He gazed in at them, and to his amazement, they were all sitting around tables just as they had done on earth, studying the Talmud still. The disciple watched them passionately exclaiming and arguing and reverently fingering the text. He wondered, is this really paradise? It seems like earth. But then his thoughts were interrupted by warm laughter. You are mistaken. This is not paradise. The sages are not in paradise. Paradise is in the sages. And now we'll sing another song we don't normally do from the hymnal, 146, Soon the Day Will Arrive. This morning, my musing I've entitled, Are We the Better Plan? The Christian world is beginning Holy Week this week. I know that because it always begins the Sunday before Easter with Palm Sunday, the celebration of Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. I know today is that day because all this week I've been inexplicably humming a song I used to teach the children of my parish on Palm Sunday years ago when my theology was more uncritical. I can't remember all the verses, being old and all. But here are some snippets. The chorus that runs through the song is, well, surprise, surprise, God is a surprise. Right before your eyes, it's baffling to the wise. Surprise, surprise, God is a surprise. Open up your eyes and see. Moses tended sheep upon a mountain top. He hardly noticed when a burning bush said, stop, set my people free and take them to my land. That couldn't be my God, he said. He'd have a better plan. Peter and the rest of that straggly little band, they all ran away when darkness hit the land. Whoever heard of a humble, fumbling boss? He couldn't be our God, they said. He's hanging on a cross. Except for a stuttering, insecure Moses, lamenting that God would have a better plan. I find the song annoying now. Who needs a cheery little tune running through your head during the most somber week of the church year? Even more annoying is the song's suggestion that Jesus' cruel execution was God's idea of a plan. If I interpret it like the church has done, killing his son was the best plan God could come up with to save us from being who we are. Yeah, yes, flawed and imperfect. Suppose you come to me for spiritual support about something that is making your life hell. There are so many examples to choose from. Suppose it's a no-win choice facing you at work, or guilt over hurting someone unintentionally, or your partner being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, or your doctor telling you your cancer is no longer in remission and there is nothing more she can do. I have found the church's response that everything is going to be okay because God sent his only son to a cruel and bloody death for me, totally stuffed. It doesn't change anything. My spouse still has Alzheimer's and I'm dying of cancer. And if that is all I offered you at such a moment, you would be justified in telling me to sod off. And the rest of you would be too politely Kiwi to say it. To find any comfort and insight, I have to look beyond the events that look beyond the events of the church's interpretation. I need to look at the unvarnished truth. Remember that it took 400 years for the church to reach the general consensus that Jesus was fully God as well as fully human. Then for the next 1600 years, the church rarely mentioned the latter. Let's reclaim the truth that Mary Magdalene sings about in Jesus Christ Superstar. He's a man. He's just a man. There's no evidence that Jesus saw himself as anything more. He didn't know his last name would become Christ. He's just a man who faced a difficult world like the rest of us. Disease, poverty, injustice, death may have always been part of the human condition, and they still are, and they always will be. Our sense of wonder before the face of nature and our outrage at the exploitative indifference of human institutions are still a fact of life, just as they were for Jesus and for everyone before him. Life has been a journey of twists and turns for humanity ever since we sacrificed our fins to crawl out of the primordial soup and evolve to a point where we could trade relying on our instincts for free will. As an aside, I have to wonder if that free will thing was an intelligent design decision. It ranks right up there with why God would drive wedges into humanity, such as making some of us attracted to the opposite sex and others attracted to the same sex, or painting our skin so many different colors. What was the point of that? Isn't life tough enough without those hurdles? But back to the point. Jesus was just a man. Yes, he was a man on a mission. The mission was to give us an aha moment. Yes, life is tough, but we are not its victims. We are more than our animal instincts or our totally unpredictable and barely consistent free will. We are something more because of our capacity to love. We are the plan for a better world, every bit as much as he was. I don't think scientists will ever find a gene that will explain our capacity to love. Its source is beyond our DNA. Being human, we hate mystery, so we keep seeking its source. Failing that, we all try to name it. Robert Burns named it a red, red rose. Jesus called it Abba. Moses called it Yahweh. What the Palm Sunday story, and yes, it's just a story, not history, reminds us that it is the capacity to love from wherever it comes that frees us from being victims. From entering Jerusalem in an ironic mockery of a royal procession, to suffer betrayal from those who should have known him best, to being unjustly charged, to being rejected and cruelly mocked by those he came to serve, and finally being enthroned on a cross with the satiric label King of the Jews above his head. His life and death became a metaphor. The story reminds us to wrap the mantle of the metaphor around us tightly, that we never forget our capacity to love. Sadly, the church has confused Jesus' embodiment of love with being its ultimate source. Sad because it makes us forget he is a man. He is just a man. When we forget, we lose touch with the fact that he is no different than we are. We are no less human than he is. It blinds us to our own capacity to embody such a love unknown. Whatever he could do, we could do. The word mythology comes from the Greek mythologia, or storytelling. Each of us has a story. We're in the midst of it. We gained self-understanding by listening to the stories of others. They are best told in metaphorical narratives, poetry, songs, and being who they are. Our closing song makes the point best. May your life be as a song by Jim Scott. Harold Beck, a Methodist minister, once said, when you understand the concept of the Messiah, you'll know that it's the person next to you. The person next to you is the one who shows up when you need them, even if you don't realize it. Today, Jesus' story is still incomplete. Holy Week still awaits us. Easter is still only a promise. I was once asked, how do Unitarians handle Easter? Very carefully, I said, smiling, using the old saw about mating porcupines. But today we cannot escape the truth that love preserves us from becoming victims of the powers and principalities that surround us. We now know that our capacity to love cannot be washed away in a tsunami or killed in a pandemic. It is what allows us to go on in the face of whatever comes our way, and ultimately what unites us and makes it all somehow worthwhile. For many of us, we find that the surprise. We are the better plan. We only have to open up our eyes and see. Our closing hymn is May Your Life Be a Song by Jim Scott. There's some pretty amazing guitar picking in this song. I hope you enjoy it. My fingers get tired watching that. My closing words are by Carolyn Brown. We are called to say yes to the journey for freedom for ourselves and for others. We cannot remain in captivity, but must risk the journey to freedom for all. And now it's time to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I hope you're sticking around for the breakout groups, but if not, this would be the time to say goodbye while I explain what your question is. And it's a simple one to ask, not so simple for you all to work out. The question is, what surprises you about who you are? What surprises you about who you are.